Hi, my name is Tara Rossi. I'm the literacy supervisor for grades K through 5. I created this presentation to give you some information and some feedback to help with the understanding of what literacy instruction looks like in our classrooms. There are some adjustments and enhancements that have taken place over the last few years, and I think it's important that you're knowledgeable about those things. And I also want to give you some information on how you can support your children at home. The overview for this presentation will focus on 5 core questions that will help define what our literacy practices look like and identify some of the shifts that have taken place. So first we'll look at what is balanced literacy, how is word study different this year, what assessments do we use to drive our instruction, where is literacy instruction headed, and what can I do at home to support my child? So balanced literacy is the model that we use to support learners in the classroom, and it's basically made up of 2 different instructional techniques. So the first is called immersive literacy. In that instructional arena, students are immersed in reading and writing. They are provided access to high quality text. They experience a literacy-rich environment where they have access to classroom libraries, um, word walls, and they're constantly interacting with literacy in an active way, similar to how you would imagine students learn a foreign language. When we say we are immersing them in the language, they travel to another country and they basically utilize the skills that they've learned to be functional and to be immersed in the style of learning. Direct explicit instruction is the other form of instruction that we utilize in the balanced literacy model. And that's more of a traditional type of instructional model where you see the teacher as the head of the class. She's the center of instruction. He or she works with students, supports their learning through the feedback cycle, meeting their needs as he sees fit through support and reinforcement. That combined with immersive literacy is what we know to be the balanced literacy model. And based on research and best practice in the field, we know that by addressing both of these instructional supports, we give students a well-rounded literacy experience. So inside of this model is what we call the reading writing workshop, and that is what typical lessons look like on a daily basis. We utilize something called the gradual release of responsibility to frame our lessons. And so what that means is that, and you'll see that image sort of to the left of the screen that demonstrates how the responsibility for learning shifts first from the responsibility of the teacher when the teacher implements the mini lesson, which is typically anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes. We know that a student's attention span on average falls into this category. So the lesson is short and concise, it's focused, it's a whole group lesson. The teacher in this portion of the lesson does a lot of modeling. They show the student how to utilize the skill, how to think about the skill, how to manipulate learning. The students have a chance to work together in a safe and supportive way. And the teacher uses tools like mentor text, which can be books, articles, excerpts, poetry, or exemplar writing, which might be student writing, or it could be writing from professional authors. But they use these tools to ground the skill and to concretize the learning so that the students see how these standard skills strategies actually really work within the text. We move into a very guided, supported portion of the lesson where some of the responsibility is now shifted from the teacher to the student. There's a lot of collaboration that happens here. There's still a heavy amount of guidance and support from the teacher. This is where small group instruction takes place. Guided reading instruction happens here. Teachers utilize this opportunity to meet the needs of each of their learners where they are. And so what happens from one group to another can be very different. It can be similar. It simply depends on the day and the needs of the children in the environment. Conferencing takes place at this point where students, teachers together, separate, are talking about reading of text or things that they're writing so that they can grow and reflect on the process. We move into the independent portion of the lesson, which is where the responsibility has been solely shifted to the student. This is where they have the opportunity to make a lot of decisions about what they read, what topics they're connected to or inspired by. So choice is a core component of this portion of the lesson. But here is an opportunity for students to show us what they can do with the skills and standards, certainly at their level and with regard to their ability, but it gives the teacher information to see how they're going to loop back and continue to support not only the class but individual students. So this is essentially what a day or a 2-day period of learning can look like in the reading writing workshop. We call it the workshop because it's a very active space, meaning students are engaging in reading and writing on a regular basis to become more proficient readers and writers. So that's some of the dialogue we use to explain the process for which we engage in. There are various units of study in reading. We focus on fiction, nonfiction, and poetry. In the upper elementary grade levels, we look at literary analysis, where students have the opportunity to analyze text and respond to prompts or open-ended questions, utilizing the evidence and knowledge they've gleaned from the text. In writing, we have 2 types of writing that we work with. On-demand writing means that it's short, so it might happen over a lesson or over a day or two, where students are given the opportunity to demonstrate what they know and utilize the writing skills that they've gained. Sometimes it's free writing where they can engage in creative process, and sometimes it's more structured. But a process piece is very different. A process piece is what we call real world writing, in the sense that we take students through a writing process, and the teacher has several different lessons in each stage of the writing process that help guide students' progress and the development of skills. It starts with immersion, where students learn what each genre of writing really looks like and means. So there are 3 core writing genres at every level: narrative, informational, and opinion-based writing. And so you can see the image on the side that kind of gives them a little more clarification on what those steps look like, all the way from generating, selecting ideas, drafting, revising and editing, finally to publishing a written piece. In our word study model, we utilize the core components of an effective word study program. Instruction is direct, explicit, it's systematic, and it's sequential, so it builds on one another. At grades K through 3, our core focus is a phonics-based program where the students are learning the rules of language, they're learning how patterns apply to different words, and we will continue to focus on phonics-based instruction using our core delivery method of multisensory instruction at grades K through 2. What we know through data and observation is that this is not an area where one size fits all. Students develop at different paces, they learn in different ways. And so while we have a scope and sequence for each grade level, we also need to be very cautious that we're not just moving all students forward simply because the scope and sequence calls for that. There are some learners who need a little bit more time working with a skill. There are some learners who are ready to move on when others aren't. And so this year, our focus is to differentiate for those learners as needed by looking at formative assessment, classroom data, and observing the child in the realm of literacy. And in order to truly get an understanding of where kids are functioning, we need to have, or to ensure that students are demonstrating a mastery of the patterns and the rules and not just memorizing word lists. So we ran into this last year where we saw students who were doing tremendously well on spelling tests because they memorized a list of words, but then they couldn't take those same rules or patterns and apply them in reading to decode new words or in writing to spell words that match that pattern. So this really was a conflict of information that we were gaining, and it made it challenging for us to know how to support students or to be reliable and valid in our understanding of their skills. So what you'll see this year is that students will get a practice list of words. They'll work with those words throughout the unit, but when they take the spelling assessment at the end of the unit, those words will be new words. They'll be like words and similar words to those that they've been working with, but it's only in the student being able to apply and generalize these rules to new words that we can truly see if mastery has been developed. So that's a little bit about the phonics program and some of the enhancements there in grades K through 3. In grades 4 through 5, we've moved from a primarily spelling-based program to what all of our data is showing, which is that we need to help our students develop receptive and expressive vocabulary skills. They will receive support in spelling as needed. And so that's not going to disappear. It just will not be through an explicit, direct spelling program. It will be through small group instruction, whole class lessons, as needed based on data and observation. But where we're really struggling is in the area of vocabulary. And so we have a program that we've built and that we've researched and that we've aligned to what our 6th grade students do to ensure that it's a smooth transition. It's the study of morphology, and we look at word parts and how those word parts, like prefixes and suffixes, impact the meaning of words. So you'll get more information about what this program looks like and how you can support your students at home, but these are some of the overall differences you might see this year. In terms of assessment, we use STAR Reading and STAR Early Literacy. It's a computer-based tool. We know that multiple measures are so important when understanding a full picture of a student. We moved this year to Fontes and Pinnell running records. There's a heavy research base from Columbia University, and we're utilizing their resources. This will take the place of the DRA that what we've found for several reasons is that it hasn't kept up with the research or what we know about best practice in literacy. So rather than complementing our literacy instruction, it was actually contradicting it. I'd be happy to speak with you in depth if you have further questions on that. We also use multisensory reading evaluations. We monitor those cumulative reviews 3 times a year to see how students are processing and holding on to the skills and standards that they're working with. A spelling inventory gives feedback. We use writing rubrics that are standard based and respond to the different genres I spoke to you about earlier. The goal is to make all of this available to you this upcoming year so that you can see a full picture of your child as a literacy learner. And so we're excited about that, and more information will come out in the near upcoming months. What we are working on, I would look at those first 2 bullets as kind of very closely related. We want to make sure that from an equity perspective, every student gets what they need. And in order to do that, we need to look more precisely at the data we're collecting, at the skills that our students are demonstrating, and dig a little bit deeper to identify exactly where goals should be set in order to meet learners where they are. And finally, we want to make sure that students are prepared, not just for standardized tests. Of course, that's an important component of education, but also for the real world. That's a much more complex system to navigate. And so we want to make sure students have authentic real world opportunities to engage in reading and writing, which is more engaging overall and also brings more meaning to the skills that they're learning. Finally, you can be a great support to your students at home. It's something that is said over and over again, but read to and with your children. Enjoy it. Don't think that they're too old. I read with my 5th grader on a regular basis, and it's just a nice time where we connect and enjoy a story that we've selected. Look for new ways to engage them in literacy. A new title that just came out. There's things like Audible, which is an app where they can listen to text and stories or informational text, whatever they're most interested in. Epic is a great website where they can look at text online. It's important to be a role model for our kids. If we're readers and we really value that, then they will eventually as well. We can set realistic goals. I'll be honest, as a reading specialist in the district, it is not true that I get the chance every single night to read with my kids. So we set realistic goals. This week is a crazy week, so we're definitely going to set aside some time on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Set things that you can accomplish and it'll feel good. Work with your child's teacher for support or additional strategies and skills that might be helpful. And please reach out to me at any point in time if you need more support. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.